Have you ever stood in a place that just felt, well, different? Not necessarily grand or spectacular, but just strange? Well, today we're going to dive into why that feeling might be absolutely real. We're going to learn how to see past the big, dramatic landscapes and find the subtle, scientific clues that tell you you're standing somewhere truly rare on this planet.
So let's just get right into it. What really makes a place rare? Come on, it's not just about being beautiful or way out in the middle of nowhere. No, it's about a specific set of conditions, biological, geological, even physical, that are just so statistically improbable they almost shouldn't exist.
Most of us are used to what I'd call the postcard view of rarity. You think of massive canyons, towering mountain peaks, right? The obvious stuff. But we're here to give you a new lens, the scientific view. It's a way of seeing that looks for things like improbable physics, the echoes of deep time, and all these little subtle clues that honestly, most people just walk right past.
All right, so our first set of clues, they actually come from the living world itself. The plants, the animals of a place, they can be the quietest, but honestly, the most powerful signs of just how unique a spot really is.
So here's the first big one. When you find a species that has evolved for one teeny tiny, super specific niche, that's a massive sign. These organisms, they're called endemics, and they can only survive because their little corner of the world has been remarkably stable or totally isolated for an incredibly long time.
And I mean, just think about these examples. Imagine an insect that can only live in the very specific humidity of one single tiny valley. That's it. Or what about a plant that has somehow adapted to a soil chemistry that's literally toxic to everything else? Or a bird whose song is completely alien, matching nothing else in the region? You see, these aren't just little quirks. They are living, breathing proof of a rare history. Okay, next up is a clue that's all about time itself. Some really rare places are defined by this incredible slowness, where the normal cycles of growth and decay seem to be almost frozen, and this happens in a couple of distinct ways. So on one hand, you've got places with extremely low disturbance. These spots are basically shielded from chaos, right? This allows for ancient trees to grow, and you get these moss mats that are meters thick. But then on the other hand, you have places that are just starved of energy. In these spots, a fallen leaf might not decay for decades because there's just so little microbial activity. Both of those conditions are exceptionally rare.
All right, let's move on. We're building our case here. We've looked at life, and now we're going to look down, at the very ground beneath our feet, to read the history that's written in stone and water.
Believe it or not, the soil itself can send a direct message, like a text from the planet's deep interior. When you find certain minerals and elements, we're talking things like nickel or chromium, it means you're standing on soil that was created by really rare geological events, like tectonic plates colliding and dredging up pieces of the Earth's mantle.
And get this is what's so incredible. These types of soils cover less than 1% of the Earth's land. So if you're standing on ground like this, you are literally standing on an exposed piece of the planet's deep interior, something that really should be miles and miles beneath your feet. Wow.
And you know what? That strange geology leads directly to our next clue. These unique rock formations, they create this incredibly complex underground plumbing system. And this results in some really bizarre water behavior up on the surface. I'm talking about rivers that just vanish into the ground, or freshwater springs miles inland that somehow respond to the ocean's tides. It's not magic, it's a sign of a hidden, rare architecture just below.
Sometimes the biggest clues aren't what's there now, but what used to be there. We're talking about geological ghosts. These are the leftover marks from immense, ancient forces like glaciers or totally different sea levels. They're like fossils, but embedded in the landscape itself.
Seriously, have you ever seen a massive boulder just sitting all alone in a flat field, with no mountains anywhere nearby? That's a glacial erratic, probably dropped by a giant ice sheet that melted 10,000 years ago. Or maybe you've seen a flat terrace on a hillside that looks just like an old beach, but it's hundreds of feet above the current ocean. These are signals that the landscape around you doesn't fit the climate of today, and that is a sure sign of a rare and dramatic history. Okay, for our third category, we are moving into the invisible world. These are the clues you can't easily see or touch. They're created by these improbable alignments of physics that shape a place in really profound ways. A rare combination of topography, the shape of the land, and temperature can create some truly strange microclimates and optical effects. And these aren't just little weather quirks. We're talking about sustained atmospheric conditions that depend on a really delicate long-term balance.
I mean, just imagine a deep valley that traps cold air so perfectly it actually gets frost in the middle of July. Or a desert where it never, ever rains, yet life is thriving by harvesting moisture from a persistent daily fog. And if you ever see something fleeting, like a Brocken specter, that's your own shadow cast on the clouds with a halo of light around it, it means you are in a place where the atmospheric conditions are aligning in a way that is just wildly improbable.
All right, this next clue is one you actually have to listen for. The very sound of a place, or how sound travels through it, can be a direct result of its unique and very rare physical structure. And here's the thing. It all comes down to precision. A sand dune will only sing if its grains are almost perfectly uniform in size and shape. A rock formation only becomes a whispering gallery if its geometry matches these specific harmonic ratios. So these aren't just random accidents. They're acoustic phenomena that can only happen when the physical conditions are just right. Okay, so we've covered clues you can see, clues you can touch, and clues you can even hear. But this final clue, it's different. It's the one that started our whole conversation. It's a feeling. And this is the final piece of your new toolkit for seeing the world.
So what is it? What's this last and maybe most subtle clue of all? Well, it isn't an external observation, it's an internal one. It's that subjective, psychological sensation that something is just off.
It's that distinct feeling of otherworldliness, that sense that a place is strange, even when on the surface, nothing looks out of the ordinary. You might just dismiss it as your imagination, but it turns out there could be a very real, physical reason for it.
And this is where it all just clicks into place. That feeling of strangeness might actually be your brain subconsciously detecting real physical anomalies that are below the threshold of your normal perception. Things like low-frequency sounds created by wind blowing over weird terrain, or tiny variations in the local magnetic field. Your intuition is literally picking up on the physics of a rare place.
And at the end of the day, this is what it all comes down to. Rarity isn't always about the big spectacle. It's about these improbable alignments of physics, chemistry, biology, and time. It's about learning to listen to the whispers. So, the next time you're out for a walk, just pay attention. Really look for that hyper-specialized little plant, listen for that strange echo, and trust that little feeling of otherworldliness. What subtle clues will you find? What secrets is the earth whispering to you?